In this lesson, we'll cover placing slanted structural columns in either an elevation or section view. Currently, we're looking at a plan view of level 1. On level 1, we have vertical columns. Now, we want to place slanted columns from level 2 to level 3. And we're going to do that in an elevation or a section view. But first, let's look at the layout. When you're placing a slanted column in an elevation, for example, typically you'll align it to a plane of a grid. Let's say I want to draw my columns that are slanted on grid 1. So the view I need to look at if I'm placing the columns on grid 1 is a view that's parallel to that grid. So that could be the east or the west. So let's go to the east elevation. In your views, scroll down to elevations, double-click east. This opens the east elevation. Now the next step is I need to set the plane for which I'm going to draw the slanted column on. And that is going to be grid 1. So let's go to the Structure tab on your ribbon. All the way to the very right in the Work Plane panel, click Set. Choose Name for Work Plane and then select Grid 1. Click OK. Now if you happen to be in another elevation where Grid 1 is not parallel to this view, Revit would tell you and force you to open the correct elevation. But here, the level numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. are actually parallel to my screen. That's why I don't see them. So I'm going to draw a slanted column now on grid 1 between various levels. Now I could draw it between level 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. It's up to you, depending on what we want to do at this point. So to draw this slanted column, on the Structure tab, choose Column. Once you select Column, notice on the right in the Placement area, slanted column is the only option because we're in an elevation. Now, if you want to place a tag as you draw the column, choose Tag on Placement. Otherwise, you can place the tags after the fact. The option bar only allows for 3D snapping. There are no other options. So now to place a column, I'm going to put this between level 3 and level 4, just as an example. Simply mouse over where you want the base of the column on the lower level, click, drag your mouse on an angle up to the upper level, wherever you want this column to be placed. Let's say I'm going to place it at a 45-degree angle, then click again. That column is now drawn in that angular position. In other words, it's slanted. To create another one, simply click again on one of my actual grid lines, drag my mouse to a grid line above, click again, and you've drawn another slanted column. To end the command, click Modify. To view this in 3D, let's go to our default 3D view by clicking the icon at the very top of our screen. And then I can rotate the model around to actually see my slanted columns that we just drew. So as a review, in this lesson, we talked about placing slanted structural columns, specifically in an elevation or section view. To do that, you first need to define the section plane or elevation plane that you're placing the columns on. Usually it's a grid line. That grid line has to be parallel to the elevation view you're looking at. So we chose grid line 1, and a parallel view to that was the east elevation. So we set grid line 1 as our reference plane, went to the east elevation, then we started the column command. Once we started the structural column command, we saw slanted was the only option, and then we simply clicked level line to level line at a given angle to produce our structural slanted columns.